Welcome to Over the Edge podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Rankin. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the energy of emotions. Now, what do I mean by the energy of emotions? Well, okay, first let's start with the Latin root word for emotion, which is emovere. And that translates loosely into the energy in motion. So that sounds simple enough, right? Energy in motion. So if emotions are energy in motion, does that mean that we always have to feel all of the emotions that are projected at us? And what I mean by that is projected at us is, have you ever felt really good when you're in someone's presence? Or have you ever felt uneasy or, very drained when you're in certain environments or in certain people's energy fields or around them? So I think that's where we're going to talk today. We're going to talk about the energy of things, and maybe the takeaway from this will be how to differentiate if the energy is yours or if it belongs to someone else or something else. And what I mean by something else is, society. There's a lot of energies in play right now. And there's a lot of emotions that get stirred because of that. And sometimes we take on things as, energies that are projected at us. And we don't realize, sometimes how things affect us. And then it goes from basically being in the energy body, right? Since everything is energy and energy is constantly in motion, regardless if you can see it or not, it is always in motion. So we take that energies of the things that are being perceived, and let's look at them from the energy body and how that manifests possibly into the physical body or physical ailments or things like that, such as stress, anxiety, and, even things into physical ailments or depression, whatnot. So today it's going to be, none of this is scripted, by the way. So it's just these are my thoughts kind of made, manifested into reality. And so we're going to kind of touch base on the things that I believe and perceive in this world. And maybe you relate, maybe you don't. But either way, that's for you to decipher. Not for me to tell you, but for you to actually decipher and do the due diligence on your own. So, I'm going to go back to the whole energy and motion right quick. And with that, I think it's safe to say that everything is energy, from the tabletop that that my computer is setting on, to my physical body, to the sound that is being relayed from my body through this microphone out into whatever instrument you are listening it to, and into your energy field. So when we start looking at energy, everything is energy. I think that we can decipher, and I think a lot of those who are listening to this podcast are probably more aligned to, deciphering and doing the due diligence and awakening on their own, and, and it might have a little bit of a grasp of where I'm going with this, but if you don't, just kind of bear with me. So everything being energy and the energy being in motion, emotion, is perhaps, let's look at how we perceive the energies that we find our daily lives being surrounded by. I would say that stress energy is very prominent these days, probably more so in the world that we live in, just because we get so inundated with technology and information coming at us that, there's more energies for us to actually process. So looking at that, let's start deciphering what actually belongs to us. What is our energy and the emotions that we attach to that? And what are the energies and emotions of others? So the question I like to ask when I find myself feeling a little bit uneasy or irritated, or, those emotions of even anger or just being really stressed out, I like to ask myself, is this mine? Does it belong to me? And is there something that I can do about it? Either way, if it is or isn't mine, is there something that I can do about it? And more often than not, as soon as I start asking those questions to myself, it will start to bring me clarity. It will start to bring me this sense of, okay, so if this energy belongs to me, what can I do with it? Why am I upset, or why am I stressed out? And, what will bring ease or a remedy to the situation? And sometimes it's just as easy as acknowledging, okay, it's mine. So if it's mine, sometimes I'm triggered by things that, and you may relate to this, sometimes I'm triggered by things that just don't sit right with me, or they just don't feel right with me. Abraham Hicks, I don't know if you follow Esther Hicks. Abraham Hicks is who she writes about. And that there's an energy there that she talks about being in the vortex of energy. And the vortex, I'm going to give you a cliff note. So the vortex is the energy field in which you are in alignment with that which feels good for your body, that which feels good for the path that you are on, and creating whatever it is you're creating, whether it's career, spiritual alignment, relationship, just your feel-good state, your overall well-being feel-good state of energy, right? For not just the energy body, but the physical body as well. So, Esther Hicks refers to that as a vortex. I like to refer to that as you being in alignment with that which you are creating. So your alignment of creation. And when we step out of that energy of, of being in alignment, or out of the vortex, whatever label you want to put onto it, whenever we step out of that energy, we start noticing that we're not in alignment with things. So things will trigger us. People will trigger us. Certain emotions are brought up to the surface. And I think emotions really are our way of deciphering. It's a way for us to get in touch with our bodies and to decipher whether or not we are in the correct alignment with things. And certain things will trigger people where they don't trigger others. And that's because we each, as individuals, have our own alignment. There's also the alignment of community, the sense of community, the alignment of, being with, what we'd like to call is with the right people, being with, those who are like-minded, which brings ease, because there, again, it's the word alignment. So emotions and alignment, those are kind of the key points of this conversation today. So take note when you are around people and it feels good and the energy is vibing and, there's this alignment and it's so ease-filled and it just flows, and how good your body feels in that. Those are the things that we really should start paying attention to. And we should also be acknowledging that which is not in alignment with, with what we're asking to create, the direction we're trying to go, the presence that we wish to have. And those are the things that trigger us, the things that are not in alignment with, who we be, what we act, our authentic selves. And, and right now I'm going to put a little bit of politics into this, because there's a lot of triggered emotion around that. One particular topic, regardless of what party you believe in, I'm not going to get into that aspect of it. I'm just going to get into the aspect of how politics themselves will trigger a lot of emotions, and mainly the emotions of creating division, making a wrongness out of one or the other party, And because of the timing of all of this, this is March of 2021. So, we just went through an election year. There was a lot of things that were brought up. There was a lot of discussion and viewpoints that created and stirred a lot of emotions within the American peoples. And, as a whole, we have to look at why those emotions were triggered. We have to look at the energy of, why certain people were triggered, and it was because it went against the possible, alignment of their belief structures. So I use that as one example because, when we start looking at the way that our world works, the way that the universe works, the universe is nothing but energy. And you will hear me say more than once, you will probably hear me say repetitively throughout my podcast series and even talking with me in person, that the universe is a yes man. And I use that quote, yes man, in quote, fairly loosely, is that the universe only knows how to give. It only knows how to give energy. It's not ever going to take anything away. It's only going to give you new experiences and new energies and new things. And so when we start to align ourselves with the energy of that which we find ease in, that which brings our body's enjoyment, that which brings our well-being, our mental state of health into alignment with prosperity, abundance, joy, happiness, and the things that trigger those emotions and those energies can range, okay? But when we find ourselves in alignment with that, the universe is going to give us more. So when we find ourselves in the emotions, and the reason why I say that is because when we find ourselves in the emotions of being oppressed or feeling down or depressed or stressed or frustrated, the energy of the universe is going to gift us more of those unless we actively choose to change those emotions, to actively change that energy in motion, those emotions, to something that we are more in alignment with. So when I go back to the energy of, have you felt really good when you're in someone's presence? Acknowledge that energy and notice what surrounds that energy and those emotions. Is it because I'm going to take a person, so if you find yourself in front of a person and your energy feels really good with them, what is it that you are in alignment with? What is it that you appreciate about the energies of that? Going with the flow? Are you talking about things that create greater for you and humanity? Are you talking about things that just feel really good and light? And, and I'm going to tie the politics back into it ever so slightly, is that you can have a political discussion with someone and it feels light and it feels ease-filled and it feels like energy and emotion. And even if it is not in agreement with what they say, because sometimes we find ourselves that we are aligned with others in more ways than one, even though we may have different political views, we may have different spiritual, religious views, we may have different views on a lot of different aspects, but it's the flow of energy. Now, I will say this, if I offer you any advice today, it is to get in touch with that which you are aligned with. And that means looking at the circle of people that you are around. It's looking at the energy of, the belief structures, the indoctrinations that you have, been brought up with. The belief structures, right? And that's the whole point of Over the Edge podcast, is that it's getting us to look at things in a different perspective, in a different manner. So that way we can start shifting towards that which we want to create, that which, benefits not only ourselves as personal individuals, but it also helps propel us as humanity into a better direction. Now, I am not one to say what direction that is. But historically speaking, I think that there are a lot of things that need to shift and change. And that starts with letting go of a lot of belief structures, old belief structures, things that are outdated, a lot of things that have kept us indoctrinated and stuck. Remember that whole energy in motion thing, the emotion. So the emotions of our past sometimes do not create a greater future if we continue to stay in that energy. The energy, instead of being in motion, propelling forward, will sometimes keep us stuck. So, and this goes beyond just political aspects or societal things. It's the energy of, here's a great example. The energy of, past relationships. If we find ourselves, keep repeating patterns, what is the definition of insanity? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. If nothing changes, then you're not going to get a different result. Nothing new is going to come from it. So when we look at relationships, for example, if you keep going back to the same type of person, the same toxic relationship strategies, you're not going to get anything but the same toxic relationship strategies, regardless if it's a different person or not, right? So we have to really start looking at the emotions, looking at what we want to create in this world, looking at our environment where we find ourselves at. And it takes us going over the edge. A lot of us peer over the edge a lot of times in life where, we know that there's something better and we're being called and pulled to do something better with our lives, or we're being called to act and behave in a different manner, or to surround ourselves with, different environments. Whether it's moving from the hometown that you grew up in, to somewhere across the world, or, something that drastic, or even if it's just changing daily habits. We peer over the edge. We'll say, we'll start tomorrow, or Monday, we'll do it on Monday. And then Monday rolls around, or tomorrow rolls around, and we don't actively choose to take those steps to be in motion, to be emotionally aligned with that which we're asking to create. And it keeps us locked in place. So really peering over the edge, you've got to take that leap of faith. So, going back to the saying that the universe is a yes man, then that is just saying that the universe always has my back. That if I actively choose something and I take the steps of inspiration and I take that leap, that I know that the universe is going to keep providing for me. Now, some of you may be asking, where does doubt come into play of that? Well, doubt is an emotion. Doubt is the emotion of, of feeling that something's inadequate, or that something's not going to happen. That's an emotion that you get trapped in. And we have to let go of the doubts. We have to let go of the fear. Episode 1 was about, moving past the fear in order to create something greater, or acknowledging the fear and doing it anyway. And so this is that energy of, looking at the emotions. One, what's going to make me happy? And these are some of the takeaways that I want you to take away from this podcast, are the questions of, what do I truly desire? What do I truly desire? What makes me feel good? Where can I create more of that? Where can I be in alignment with what I'm asking for? What emotions do I have to let die in order for me to create greater for myself? What indoctrinational beliefs do I have to let die in order for me to become more in alignment with what I'm asking for and what I'm asking to create? What is mine? What truly belongs to me? And what belongs to society? What am I picking up and carrying around with me? The term empath Some of you may have heard that. Some of you may have not. But empaths are those who believe. So it's a belief that we have this empathic capacity to take on other people's energies. And sometimes we perceive them as our own. Empathy. So we can empathize with others, but we don't have to carry their emotions as our own. We can, empathize the things that people are going through, the emotions that people are going through, but we don't have to take those on as our own. Why do I say that? It's because I am under the perception and personal belief that it robs people of being held accountable of their own emotions, of the things and their own emotions and experiences that they are going through in life. So while we can empathize with them, we don't have to take that on and make it our burden or our, like our cross to bear, so to speak. Is it a form of enabling? Possibly. When we do that, right? When we take things on that others really need to experience for themselves. There's always going to be a choice that you have. You always, 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 always have the choice to either carry something as your own or to release it and allow others to be held accountable for their own energy of emotions. Here's a great example of that. Let's take, for example, someone who's always, down in the dumps, someone who always thinks everything wrong always happens to them, that they can't move beyond, the victim role of, my life is crap because it just has always been that way. And, I don't know what to do about it. Nothing good can come of that. Well, some people will go, oh, you're right. And then we empathize with them to the fact that we enable them to stay in that role of victimhood, that nothing's going to change, and poor, pitiful them, that they will always remain as such. Or we can empower them and be like, you know what, that's your past. And, you can either remain to be stuck there and stay in that role of victimhood of nothing's going to get better and I'm so stressed out and I'm so frustrated and nothing good ever happens. Or you can shift it and you can say, you know what, fuck that. My life is a good life because I'm choosing at this moment in time to change it. I'm choosing to change my emotions about the situation and how I perceive my situation. And I'm going to ask the question of, how does it get any better than this? How does my life get any better than this? What can I choose now to make my life better? Does the physical body need assistance in that? And we can ask those questions. Does my physical body need assistance with that? And, prior to me starting to recording this today I had started early this morning recording and the energy was just all over the place. My emotions, it was just, I wasn't feeling very grounded and put together. And so I chose to go, wait, is this mine? My physical body needs some attention. Let me go take a salt bath. And that's one of the things that I do to help myself, right? To help my physical body and my emotions and to make me feel better is I personally go and I take a salt bath. So, and it's because I live close to the mountains and I'm not near the ocean. If I were near the ocean, I would probably jump in the ocean, right? Because it just makes me feel good. And we'll get to, physical bodies and changing vibrations and shifting vibrations in another podcast. But for this, it was about the emotion and getting into the physical state of where I needed to be in order to record this. So I took care of my emotions of shifting my energy. I took the responsibility of my physical being. And I did that. And I came back and now I'm recording this because I'm in a better headspace. I'm in the better emotion of energy of moving forward. And, and that was a conscious shift. That was the awareness that I had that I needed to do something. I needed to change something in order for something better to happen. And so what I'm saying in this is, if you find yourself labeling yourself as an empath, that you have to process energies for everyone else, would you be willing to let that go? Would you be willing to let them empower themselves into taking responsibility for themselves and allowing them to do other things, to get themselves out of the energy of stagnation, out of the energy of, of feeling stuck of where they're at? And, inspired action is what this is all about, you guys. This is about the energy of taking small steps to get you to where you want to be, to get you out of the stuck energy and emotion, the pendulum swing, as I like to call it. There's such a thing as a pendulum, and it's usually a little weighted item at the bottom of a chain or string, and it'll swing back and forth. And for some of you who are a little bit older generations and grew up with grandfather clocks, you knew that there were pendulums at the bottom of the clock that were in constant motion to get so the clock is constantly moving, right? So this is the pendulums are kind of like that. So I kind of painted a picture there for you of what a pendulum is. And when it starts swinging, it will gain momentum, right? It will gain momentum. When I was growing up, Six Flags theme park had this wonderful, it was a ship, and it was basically a pendulum in movement. And you would get on and it would swing back and forth, and it would gain momentum and go higher each time that it would swing. And eventually it would slow down and you would get off the ride. Well, look at things as being a pendulum of emotion, that swing of things. You can choose to either ride the pendulum swing, or you can choose to exit the ride, so to speak. And looking at the energy of, we always have choice. Everything's consciousness. Everything is energy. We can either stay in motion of things, or we can choose actively to switch them up. We can always choose. And I think that's the thing that I really wanted to say today was, be aware of the emotions that you find yourself in on a daily basis, and allow yourself to empower yourself to choose something different if it is not in alignment with that which you were trying to create. So I hope I didn't lose you today on this podcast. I think I really wanted to talk about, emotions and kind of build a foundational work, going forward in upcoming podcasts and the topics that are going to be presented at hand. It's about, revisiting episode 1 about acknowledging the fear that we find ourselves in, and that fear is nothing but false emotions about reality. Letting go of that, choosing greater for ourselves, and coming in alignment with that which we are truly seeking to create in this world, not only for ourselves, but for humanity. So I'm going to close on this topic today and just state that you are always empowered at every single moment in life to choose something greater. And I hope that you choose to feel good about your life. I hope that you feel good in the circles that you're in. And if you don't find yourself in particular alignment right now, may you be empowered to choose greater for yourself. Always, always, always choose greater for yourself. So until next time, I'm sending you off with so many blessings, so much love, and so much light.